everyone, it's the Outlaw Jon Rocha, just taking a moment here before we start our spoiler review of the Book of Boba Fett Episode 5 to remind you that this episode of the Geek Buddies is powered and sponsored by the fine folks over there at Carbon Health. They're a leading national healthcare provider with a mission to bring high-quality healthcare to everyone. Urgent care, primary care, and virtual care is all offered by them. They've got 90 clinics in 14 states, and they offer virtual care in 24 states for anything that you might need. They believe in making high-quality healthcare available to everyone, and that everyone deserves good health, whether you're a Clatoonian, a Rhodian, a Mandalorian, or just a regular human. You deserve great, good health, and they come up with tailored plans just for you. So go to carbonhealth.com and see if there's a place there near you if you've got any issues and you want to get checked out. And certainly for people who want to get COVID tested, they are offering testing there as well. And if you're going to go overseas, they have testing facilities available for you there to get approved to go overseas with your test. So go to carbonhealth.com and see if they can help you today. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another brand new episode of the
Geek
Buddies.
Hey! Yeah. You know, in the time of doing our show, it used to be three dudes who were unmarried. And now one of us is officially married. Shannon McClung, the guy who's eating on camera, for the love of God. Really?
I'm eating wedding cake. I'm eating wedding cake.
Oh, it was a bit.
Oh, okay. Good to go. I think you're putting it in my face because I got the smallest piece in the whole with the wedding cake. Anyway.
Oh my God. I'm going to tell you all, for everyone watching and listening, you haven't lived until you've been at your best friend's wedding and they're passing out the beautiful and gorgeous homemade wedding cake.
Yes.
And they put a piece in front of Jon Rocha the Outlaw, and he says, "This cake looks delicious. Why did you give me such a small piece?"
Yeah. I don't think you could even call it a piece because it was so
small.
A
huge piece.
It was sliver.
It was gigantic.
It was a perfectly serviceable piece.
John's umbrage ran so deep that he was able to telepathically knock the cake over about 10 minutes later.
Right as someone said, there's plenty of cake. The cake fell over. It was a perfect timing for sure.
You're knocking over the cake. Kalinowski's got the wedding photographer taking headshots of him. Like, what a day.
What a day.
What a day it was.
It was an incredible day. We posted about it on our social medias, which of course you can see there. You can follow us there on our social medias and all that jazz there to find out everything we got going on. But yeah, we're back here for another brand new episode of the Geek Buddies with some fun topics to talk about here in the world of geekdom. Let's introduce ourselves. I am the Outlaw Jon Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the channel and on the Geek Buddies. Mike.
I am Michael Vogel. I'm a writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
Shannon.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer, a television actor, and a recently married dude.
Yeah. Shannon McClure. All right, might as well get it out of the way. Put that on the list, Shaney. Put that one in your... Anyway, we're going to jump to all the things. The way it works here, if you're new with us, the way it works here is each of us brings up a news item and we talk about it amongst ourselves. Then we take a quick break and jump into our main topic. And our main topic today is on the heels of the Book of Boba Fett, Chapter 6. We had kind of alluded to a conversation last week, me and Vogel kind of on opposite sides of this idea of bringing back these legacy characters and CGI and whatever. So we're going to have a discussion about whether it's time to finally do that or not as our main topic. And we're going to jump into so many things like Madam Web and all these other things that are going on, trailers and what have you, and some Jon Bernthal news and some new Doctor Strange posters as well. And if you're not new to us and you've been with us for a while, thank you very much for staying on the train with us. All right, who is starting us off? I think it is Mikey.
It is. So, as Johnny just mentioned, Deadline reported this week that Sony, in their Spider-Man universe without a Spider-Man, has announced that they've tapped Dakota Johnson to play their first female superhero in their universe, Madam Web.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you that don't know, most of us know Madam Web as a very old woman on life support who has lots of psychic powers that does not look like Dakota Johnson. But there is a more recent Madam Web that is probably probably the one they're going with. Madam Web is tied to the Spider-Verse in the comics in a major way. Madam Web is kind of a psychic character who has often helped Spider-Man. She is connected to the webs of the multiverse. So definitely an interesting character. Probably not anybody's top 10 pick of who was going to get their own Spider-Man movie anytime soon. And once again, raising the question of, hey, Sony, what are you even doing? What's going on? So what do you guys think about this? Like the Dakota Johnson of it all, first of all, and more broadly, the Madam Web of it all. What do you two think about this?
Shannon?
Well, I mean, again, not being a huge Spider-Man reader, my knowledge of Madam Web comes from the Spider-Man animated series, where Christopher Daniel Barnes was Peter Parker. Right. And like that one was never one of my shows, but I watched it. And whenever the Madam Web episodes came up, it just seemed so not a part of Spider-Man's universe. It just seemed so kind of weird and off kilter. Knowing that she is, you know, she's like a telepath, right?
Ish, yeah.
Right?
Ish.
Okay. Knowing that, I don't know, this character seems like they could do something with a cool story with this that wouldn't necessarily need to be connected to Spider-Man, that you have this woman who has these kind of telepathic mental abilities. It seems like there could be a story there. I mean, I gotta tell you, I think I'm probably more excited for this than I am for a Kraven the Hunter movie.
How dare you?
Yeah, man, I don't want to see Kraven by himself. I'd rather see Kraven fighting Spider-Man. And Dakota Johnson as a performer, she's never necessarily been my speed. I mean, she's one of those performers who pops up in a movie and it's like, oh, it'll be fine. She's not someone that necessarily gets me excited. But yeah, I mean, along the lines like we talked about many, many times before, Sony has this incredible vault of characters that they can use, and that they're picking out the ones that they want to use. I mean, and thus far, I mean, Venom and, you know, Morbius we haven't seen yet, but Venom being the only one that is someone that they've taken from that vault and kind of created their own story. Box office wise, you can't argue with it. I mean, those movies have done incredibly well, despite the fact that I don't enjoy them at all. So there is a world where a Madam Web movie comes out and does really well.
Yeah, I'm always confused by this because I saw some of my friends, including my friend Jeff Snyder, tweeting about how she's a great choice because she's going to put butts in seats. And I'm like, 50 Shades of Grey, that was the book putting butts in seats. And I don't recall like Dakota. I mean, Peanut Butter Falcon was a damn good movie, but it wasn't Dakota Johnson putting butts in seats. So I don't know if Dakota is necessarily a box office draw. That being said, this is an interesting character to do because, as Michael pointed out, she's kind of confined to a wheelchair and she has this condition. I want to make sure I say it right. Myasthenia gravis, which makes her disabled. She's never actually physically fought villains. At least the original iteration never physically fought villains. There is a younger version of her that's in the comics. So they might be combining the two mythologies to make it work somehow. And look, we could criticize Sony all day, but those Venom movies made money, as Shannon pointed out. They made almost $2 billion combined. That's insane to consider here, or maybe over $2 billion combined. It's insane to put in it, but she's an inactive character, right? She's mentally telepathic and she does kind of stuff, but she's not physically involved. So it's an interesting choice. And there were people who were upset about this, but and we'll get to that in a second. But I mean, I like Dakota Johnson. I'd be cool with seeing her play Madam Web, but I don't know what role this is going to play, as Michael pointed out, without a Spider-Man in the Spider-Man universe.
Well, so a couple things. So just to clarify a couple things. So the original Madam Web, Cassandra Webb, who debuted in the 1980s, is the one who is tethered to a complex life support system, right? Who is kind of disabled, has disability, who originally was a mutant with strong psychic and telepathic abilities, who could read minds, project consciousness through the astral plane, and sometimes see the future. And later on, they sort of revealed that her powers were, beyond being a mutant, tied to the mystical web of life and destiny that kind of tied her to the multiverse. Now, more recently, Cassandra Webb's powers have been passed on to Julia Carpenter,
Right.
who was previously to being the new Madam Web, was a Spider-Woman who had similar powers to Spider-Man, except she could throw psi webs, which were psionic webs that would materialize into physical webs. And this one, Julia Carpenter, is blind, but is not confined to a wheelchair or to a bed or anything like that. So chances are, if they're going to go down this Madam Web route, they are probably going to be using the more recent Julia Carpenter as the basis of what they're doing. So we're not going to see although, listen, a movie about a superhero who can't move, very interesting. I don't know where you go with it. So it's probably going to be that one. And also, we know that Sony, as they've been kind of batting ideas around, Black Cat was happening for a while, Silver Sable was happening for a while, Silver Sable and Black Cat was happening for a while. But the fact that Madam Web is now the hot new commodity probably has at least a little bit to do with that movie that they just released about multiverses that made billions and billions and billions of dollars. So the fact that Madam Web in any iteration is tied to the multiverse, and Sony has seen how much we all loved what happened when Marvel did their multiverse or is doing their multiverse, I have a pretty strong suspicion that the idea is, let's get Madam Web out there as quickly as possible, hint to this bigger coming threat. I mean, like, if you're going to follow the Marvel plan, you say, hey, let's have a character that can touch the multiverse, hint at some giant multiversal war that's looming, where we're going to like drop the hint that we're going to bring Toby and Andrew and other Spider-Men and women and maybe even Tom Holland all together to face something, and we're going to build to that. That could really be the way they go. I mean, if you will go back and read the original Spider-Verse comic book, I mean, Spider-Ham, Miles Morales, Spider-Noir, the punk rock Spider-Man, who I can't remember his name right now. Like, there was so many different Spider-Men and Spider-Women that they brought together that I could really see them thinking that they were going to be able to pull that off on the big screen, which would sort of be like into the Spider-Man No Way Home meets Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse times 20. So there's probably an idea that they want to do something like that. Whether or not the studio that brought us the 2 Venom movies can pull that off remains to be seen.
Well, pull it off artistically and put it off financially are 2 separate things that we've seen with Venom.
They can make the movie.
But let me circle back. I know this is your story, Michael, but let's circle back into this part of it that I kind of want to talk about too. Is that there have been some pushback on this. There have been some angry fans who, to Yahoo covered this. They did an article on it, quoting some tweets here from people who are upset that they've chosen an actress who is not disabled in any way, shape, or form to play a disabled, for lack of a term, a disabled character, disabled superhero here in the Marvel universe. And the questions of ableist versus disableist are now popping up. And because if you go with the Julia Carpenter version, as you mentioned, she's blind. If you go with the Cassandra Webb version, she's confined to that wheelchair with that condition, myasthenia gravis. That's a really hard time pronouncing. So do you think these criticisms are valid? I mean, remember Scarlett Johansson walked away from that trans role that based on a real life person there. Other people have been kind of hounded who don't necessarily convey that, but nobody seemed to have had a problem with Charlie Cox coming back in Spider-Man No Way Home. He's playing a blind character. So what do you think, Mike?
That's what I was kind of wondering that. Like, look, I think when you can cast, whether it be race appropriately or I totally get casting a role for what the role is meant to be.
Right.
But I don't know where those people I didn't hear any blowback on Charlie Cox being Daredevil. So
no.
I'm just curious as to why this is the thing now with Madam Web. I'm not saying they're wrong. And again, I think we would have to wait and see what this iteration of Madam Web even is. Maybe she won't be blind. Maybe they're not going to have any of those disabilities. Maybe they're not going to want to have her sort of be in the Daredevil area, and they're not going to have her be blind. So I'm not sure what they're going to do with her. So I think we have to see and wait and see what this iteration of Madam Web is. But how do I say this? I would want to hear it. Let me put it this way. If it does turn out that Madam Web is blind, I would want to hear from the blind community and hear what they think. I think a lot of times in social media, and this goes for queer issues, it goes for lots of issues. A lot of people are complaining, and they're not always the people that are
the aggrieved,
the ones who understand the issue the most.
Yeah, that's a fair
And I'm not
point.
saying that's the case here. I could be 100% wrong on that, but that is just where I would like to hear from the people that are the closest to this. And again, we don't know what that is because we don't know what they're doing with Madam Web. So once we know what Madam Web is going to be, I would be curious to hear from that community.
Yeah, Shannon, let me read you some of these. Get your thoughts. Comrade Chris says, can't wait to watch Dakota Johnson sit in a chair and be blind for 2.5 hours. Crackhead Meehaw says, Madam Web is older and Dakota Johnson is not. Ageism in full effect here. Was it here? Michael MPH at Philly Part 2 says, there are only two outcomes here. Sony makes Dakota Johnson a not blind person blind in the film, or they able wash the disability out of the character entirely. That's it. Two options, both shitty. Andreas 46 said, Madam Web is canonically a blind character with myasthenia gravis. Disabled mimicry is so annoying. And before you comic book dweebs get your knickers in a twist, yes, I know about the Julia Carpenter version. This casting most likely means they'll introduce the OG Cassandra Webb combined with elements of Julia. So it'll still be disability erasure. So it's so specific in this anger. What do you think about these reactions and some of these tweets?
Well, again, thinking back, and again, I know so little about this character. Thinking back to the Spider-Man animated series, I remember when she was sort of in that kind of astral plane where she was communicating telepathically with Peter. And I could be wrong here. She got up and walked around. So,
No.
I mean, I think there's an argument to be made that this version of the character, when she's sort of living in the real world, she may be confined to a wheelchair, she may be blind, but then when she kind of activates her powers, that in that other realm, that doesn't happen. You think about Patrick Stewart playing Professor X, or James McAvoy. Like, I don't feel like this outcry was there. And granted, times have changed considerably.
Yeah.
There were both instances within both of those versions of that character where they got up and walked around. So it's like, okay, what's the better choice?
Right.
What's the right choice? Again, I agree with Vogel. Like, it would be interesting to hear a representative from that community.
Yeah.
Let us know what they think, because they're the ones, as you said, John, they're could be considered the aggrieved party.
Yeah. And Mike, the criticisms also helm from, like, we've seen deaf actors now in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, not as Sony, but certainly with Eternals.
With Eternals and with Hawkeye, they've definitely been going out and definitely casting exactly what the role is called for. So I think that's absolutely a possibility. Yeah. And kind of to John's point, I don't think that Dakota Johnson is such a huge get that you absolutely couldn't have cast somebody else. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that if it really just depends on what she's going to be. Like, again, assuming that she is just blind, and that is what they're going to do with this character, which I would say is probably a safe bet. Is there a blind actress out there that could do just as good a job as Dakota Johnson? Like, yeah. There is. That's just true. And so in that case, maybe that is the way that they should go. But again, it's sort of the same as, this comes up all the time, like with the gay community and the queer community is pretty split on should a queer character always be played by queer characters only? And if that's true, does that mean that a straight character can only be played by a straight actor? And so the queer community is very split on that as well. And there's different arguments and opinions on both sides. So that's why I say I would prefer to hear from whatever community it is that this character ends up being before I really solidified my opinion on it.
Fair enough. Okay. And S.J. Clarkson was going to be directing this. And remember, she was recently tagged or attached to the Star Trek film, and then was moved off it. I think she's done episodes of Game of Thrones. So this is a strong director for sure to kind of step in here. All right. So let's move on to our next one. Shannon McClung.
Which would be trailers. Trailers.
Wow.
The reason we're doing that is because our first trailer is going to be our first big look at Halo. Like, we saw the teaser already, but now we've gotten a 2-minute trailer where you start to see a little bit more from the Covenant. You start to see a little bit more from the Master Chief and the Spartans. The look of this series Halo's a big property. If you haven't played the video game, it takes place. It's a space epic. Takes place on different planets. Takes place on giant ships. Thinking that they were going to be able to bring this show to live action, it seemed like a pretty tall order. And based off this latest look, it looks like they have mostly succeeded. There are a couple of shots in this trailer that were a little like, I don't know. We'll see. But I'll toss it over to you guys first. What did you think of this first full trailer for Halo?
Mikey?
It was really interesting. Usually when there's like these big geek trailers, it's something that I know pretty well. So watching it is sort of like, it's the Leonardo DiCaprio meme. I'm just like, hey, oh, there it is. And Halo, I think I played it a little bit, but I was never like a huge Halo guy. So watching this trailer, I'm kind of going in cold. So the two things that I took away from it were, one, it looks fucking expensive. Yeah. It definitely looks like they spent the money on it. But the other part, and this was kind of fun to be on the outside, like usually, like I said, I'm the geek on the inside that's my friends are all texting me, what does this mean, what does this mean, what does this mean, and I'm explaining it. This time I'm the one that's kind of like, oh, so what does this mean, what does this mean? But as someone who's coming into this completely cold, like the trailer kind of hooked me. Like I was like, okay, I get what this is, I see what this story is going to be, and I'm kind of into it. Like I think this looks interesting to me. I'll definitely check it out. And I think that's really with it, with all of these big IPs that have like a lot of geek cred, a lot of fans that are being brought to the streaming services. So whether that be Wheel of Time or Lord of the Rings or Halo or any of those things, I think that the real key is, can you strike that balance between satisfying the fans that usually have very specific ideas of what they want to see, and also bringing in an audience that wants to watch this for the first time. And if you can find that balance, you really got something great. And at least based on this trailer, it makes me think that maybe they did, because I'm definitely more invested in seeing this now than I was before, where I was kind of like, cool, I'll check it out because I am a geek buddy, but now I actually genuinely want to watch it.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to see it. I did a trailer reaction for it, and it's like Michael, I'm not a player of the game, and I'm kind of on the outside. I think maybe we try it on one of our game nights, Shannon. I don't remember. We've done Call of Duty. We did.
It was Halo 3. We played a little bit of Halo 3 one night,
and I was like, you can't play this in 10 minutes. It's ridiculous. So I would just sit back and watch you guys play it, and so I had a really good time watching that. But like, it's a massive universe that Halo has with so many different moving pieces, and I really enjoyed the trailer. Here's some shots here. I mean, Shannon talks about how much money it definitely looks like they spent money on the overall look and the presentation of the trailer. I dug Master Chief's look. I like this kind of approach to it. Overall, it looks badass. So for me, I enjoyed the trailer. I'm hooked. I want to see what they've got. Natasha McElhone, I've been a fan of her since The Truman Show, so I'm excited to see her be a part of this as well. And you can tell there are political dynamics here from the Asian actress at the beginning, who is like looking at Master Chief like some kind of prison guard or warden who is keeping her a little bit in a cage, to where later, where Master Chief grabs that kind of stalagpipe, whatever that is, stalactite thing, and kind of changes his point of view and perspective, and now realizes, oh, he's being used by the military, by these scientists. Now the Asian actress is all of a sudden on his side and questioning whether he's really on their side. So certainly rebellion, empire, Star Wars stuff, you see the shades of it here throughout. So this looks exciting. I love Pablo Schreiber as an actor. I want to see what we get from here. And this looks like, as Shannon said, they spent a lot of money. And so the overall look of it hooks me. I hope the story hooks me as well. And I'm not going to play the game. So people say, play the game before you watch the... I want to watch cold, and then I'll play the game, because the game's already good. I want to see if this series is good, and maybe we'll talk about it here on the show. Maybe we'll review it, guys. I don't know. If we all watch it, we might look at it, reviewing it down the road as well. So, yeah.
I mean, my only hesitance with the trailer, and I can be a bit of a stickler for things that I do have an attachment to, is those shots of the Arbiters, which were those warriors, alien warriors. They have the energy swords. It just looked a little... not great, and I think that is going to be the challenge. Is that going to take me out of it? Because it does look like they did spend a lot of money. You can always spend more to make something look better and better and better. But you can see in the background shots of the Warthog. That's the off-road vehicle that they use. So they seem to be sticking very closely design wise
Mhm.
to the game. I mean, the story, obviously, I think they will, fit for what the story they need to tell
Right,
for what a series would be. One thing that I will be curious of, and again, this would be something for the Halo purists out there,
Mhm.
is you have such an unmistakable theme with the score from Halo, and I personally was disappointed we didn't hear any of that. Like, I want to hear that. I want to hear that music. I mean, it's the same way with Uncharted. Like, Uncharted has such an incredible score. I'm like, oh my god, if we don't get a little bit of that score, I'll be disappointed. And the same goes with Halo. But Halo comes out on Paramount Plus March 24th, so in just a little bit here. So our next trailer comes from the Netflix preview of all of their films coming out in 2022. So this was not what you would call a proper trailer for anything, because they probably showed, I couldn't even count how many, over 25, I bet.
Yeah.
And the quality of performer they have, it seems like everybody's there. I mean, they have Halle Berry, they have Kevin Hart, they have Mark Wahlberg, they have Ryan Reynolds, they have Ryan Gosling, they have Mark Ruffalo, they have Chris Evans, they have Charlize Theron, they have Kerry Washington. I mean, there are so many people in the Netflix movie world just for 2022. So gentlemen, I mean, it was obviously a very quick look, little snippets of each film, but what did you all think of this look of what we're going to get from Netflix this year, movie-wise?
Mikey, what'd you think?
The main thing that I took away from this is that putting Jason Momoa in ridiculous ram horns, he's still just Jason Momoa, and I don't care. Like, Jason Momoa has mastered that.
Yeah.
This is who I am, and I'm going to play the exact same character in every movie that you see me in for the rest of our lives, and you're going to be cool with it. Yeah. And I was like, all right, cool. Show me Slumberland, buddy. No, it was great. It was really interesting. It was an open question in that, like, there's no doubt that Netflix spends money on their movies.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no doubt that Netflix gets some of the biggest names in the world at this point, and they have stacked the deck. And, like, this trailer was like, just fuck you money, not only in the amount of star power that they had in this trailer, but the fact that they got all these stars to look directly to the screen and be like, I'm going to talk to you about Netflix. Like, it was just, okay, Netflix, we get it. Whether these movies are all going to be good, I think we've seen that when Netflix announces that they have an original movie, no matter how good it looks and no matter how many people are in it, that doesn't always mean it's gonna be great.
Right.
And for Netflix, I don't think that matters as much as some other things. I think as long as they get the clicks, as long as they get the views, I think as long as they have the people subscribing to their streaming service, they're happy. So it all looked cool. I mean, obviously the really quick look that we got at Knives Out 2, I think has everybody excited. But the Adam Project looks really interesting. Yeah. It's about, I believe it's about like a guy who time travels back and like hangs out with himself to try and save the world. This, like, at Slumberland, like, any fantasy movie looks interesting. Even if Jason Momoa's got giant ram horns, I'm on board. I'm into it. I saw that little clip of the School for Good and Evil, which I thought looked really neat. And then when it was Kerry Washington and Charlize Theron, I was like, oh yeah, okay, so all the gays are gonna watch this one. So, like, every single one of these looked kind of really interesting in its own way. Yeah. And the fact that Netflix, I mean, kind of seems like they're trying to do like, we're going to give you a movie a week, whether it's actually a week or a movie every other week or what it is. Like, they're just trying to be like, we are going to give you something new to watch that is movie theater quality on such a regular basis that you have to just, you can't not have Netflix. And so in that way, I thought it was a really effective trailer.
I love this trailer. I mean, every movie looks like they spent a lot of money on the movie. The animated ones look fantastic. Love the little shots of those stuff as well. Love seeing Mila Kunis come in and leading another movie. That's great to see on Netflix. For me, it immediately, my head, I'm always thinking of the channel. And in my head, I was thinking to myself, okay, I can just start Netflix Tuesdays. And every Tuesday, I'm just going to review a new Netflix film that they drop. here because there's this many people, so much talent. Being Eddie Murphy, for God's sakes, was just kind of thrown in there halfway through. I'm like, what? It's Eddie Murphy. And so to me, I'm just like, this is so interesting. But Hemsworth, yes. And Mike, you wonder, do they shoot these things while they're shooting these movies and go, hey, by the way, you got to do a line here saying, hey,
I literally thought about that. I was like, this has to be like, did they just be like, hey, here's your Netflix money, go make your movie. By the way, we need you to say this, and please just send it to us. And you're like, great, okay, cool. You know what it was? You know what also made me think of? It was like, I just laughed halfway through the trailer. I was like, they saw that Nicole Kidman before the AMC movie thing come in, and they were like, oh, we got you, Nicole Kidman. Yeah. Now you got every one of your actors being like, come to the movies.
I mean, Gosling doing the whole stunt on top of the train while he's talking to the camera was one of my favorites. And look, I'm no big Jennifer Lopez fan in terms of her movies. Certainly that new one, Marry Me, looks horrific. But her, the mother, if that's a good movie, I would be excited for her. Because a gritty movie like that could be exploring some kind of action or some kind of stuff that's going on here. I don't even know the plot of any of these movies as I was watching this stuff, which kind of got me even more excited. I could fill in the blanks myself, and then we'll see what is. Yeah,
gets you excited. That's also where they tend to fall down. So
that's right.
Nervous as well.
But I also think, because if they've released trailers like this, a couple of trailers like this before, Mike, but I think. And Shannon, but I think even more so now when their numbers have come back over the last quarter and they're down. And so we're seeing now that finally these streaming services are starting to catch up and put a huge dent in Netflix's numbers. And so clearly they went out and spent some money, got some people, and, because I'm sure they projected their numbers out a while ago. So they've spent the money. Now it's, can they make the good movies, which is the valid point you're bringing up, Michael, because spend all the money you want. If no one's watching your movies and they suck, what's the point? And then other streaming services now have, like Apple TV is making some damn good content quietly, step by step, with all the money they have. So you're going to have to compete with a lot of eyes now to get people to keep subscribing to your channel. And certainly with the financial stuff and whatever, it's a battle consistently. So we're having battles in the studios and battles in streaming services going on. It's going to be super intense as we go along, but certainly a lot of great actors and a lot of interesting looking movies from this trailer for sure.
Of the tidal wave of titles that we saw, do you guys have a pick? I think Vogel said Slumberland already.
No, well, I mean, I think that.
Good question.
I mean, look, I think that if you just have to take Knives Out 2 out of it. I think that knowing that Knives Out 2 is Rian Johnson, I think it almost sort of like separates itself from the pack, because I'm not banking on Netflix's creative. I'm banking on Rian Johnson's creative. And if Knives 2 is remotely like Knives Out, that's going to be one of the better of the batch. Everything else is sort of like a giant question mark. That Sea Serpent movie, the CG animated one, like, I know nothing about it aside from the 2 seconds of footage, but it looked amazing. Like the footage looked great. So I'm intrigued by that. The Guillermo del Toro Pinocchio kind of freaks me out.
Yeah.
It makes me uncomfortable.
You got one, Johnny?
Yeah, I got certainly the Ryan Gosling one, as I mentioned, The Gray Man, I think is what it's called. That one looks really interesting. Kind of has shades of what was the one that Chris Hemsworth did on Netflix? Excavate. What is it called?
It's not Excavation.
Extraction.
Extraction. That's what it is.
And having him go toe to toe with Chris Evans. Funny. I love that they clone Tyrone. That name just alone gets me excited to see what this is all about.
They clone Tyrone is a great title,
right? And
like, it's just a great title,
right? And then and then right after that is Carter, which looks like this Asian, probably possibly. I'm not sure what. I don't want to speculate what country it's from, but like, it looks pretty badass. Like someone takes this kid from this dude. So this guy's got to get this kid back. So boom, that kind of stuff really excites me. So those are the three that stood out for me. And that sea creature thing coming out of the water, the animated one, that looks fantastic. So I'm curious to see what that's going to lead to for sure. And of course, Adam Project. And don't tell me you didn't get Harry Potter vibes from the School of Good and Evil, for God's sake. Very Harry Potter-esque.
Oh yeah, the wide shot of wherever the school is, the castle. Yeah. It's like, wow, this is very...
But then also Charlize and Kerry Washington in those wigs. It was like Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Drag Race. I was into it. Like I was like, let's do it. Let's do it.
More like Hogwarts School of, oh my God. Okay. as Harry Potter and them spoke about when the Bobaton showed up. All right, there you go. So anything else on those trailers there, Shannon?
No. We got a lot of movies to watch on Netflix this year, though.
We do. All right, let's jump into the stuff I want to talk about real quick before we get to our main topic here, and that's Jon Bernthal. There are rumors going around that are starting to persist here. It's being reported that Jon Bernthal will be returning as the Punisher in the MCU. This is starting to get this is reported as a scoop, possibly here on Twitter. Now, you don't want to get too insane, and until it's official, until Marvel says it. But the article here says that there's a new Punisher series in the works, and that details will be revealed down the road about it. So we already saw Charlie Cox being a part of Spider-Man No Way Home, and certainly everybody afterwards was like, when's Bernthal coming back? Because people loved that first season of Punisher. Second season, but first season certainly was a great Punisher series. In my opinion, was the number one of all those Netflix shows. That season was my favorite season of all of them. And I know it's just my own personal opinion. So having him come back, are you guys excited? First of all, do you believe he's coming? It's not official statements, but it seems to be growing, this belief that he's coming back. Do you think this scoop is true? And second, what do you want to see Jon Bernthal's Punisher be in a Marvel Disney PG-13 universe? I know Deadpool's going R, but I mean, I don't know how you do Punisher PG-13. I just don't know how you do that.
Well, it depends if he starts off in a Punisher series. One, it could be similar to what the Netflix series did, and they introduce him in something else.
Oh, not again. We already saw him though, man. I mean, we already saw the backstory.
I have a guess, but I think the possibility is certainly there. I mean, the Charlie Cox, Vincent D'Onofrio situation has definitely proven that Marvel will be like, all right, let's see what worked in the past that we didn't necessarily do, and let's put it to work. So the idea that him being in the MCU, I think, is very exciting. With what was established in the Netflix shows, it seems like it could be hard to put him into the current MCU, just because the character is kind of like, at least with his series, it was such a hard R. It was so violent, it was so bloody. But I think there's a scenario where he could end up in Armor Wars. That scene of the things that have been announced, looking like, where could you put Frank Castle?
Right.
That right now, at least, that's the only one I could see him possibly being in. And I have no evidence of that. That's just looking at their slate, and it's like, yeah, I could see him in there. Whether or not that'll happen, I don't know. I mean, Deadpool being such a hard R because of the comedy and the nature of the character, I think they're more willing to do that versus the extreme violence that is typically associated with the Punisher. But I don't know. I mean, at this point, it seems like it's a blue sky.
Yeah, Mikey, he's crossed over in the comics into like Spider-Man and where they haven't seen blood and guts and all this kind of stuff. So it is possible, but would you want to see that? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't understand why everybody thinks that this is such like a monumental divide. Like, we've had Clint Barton be Ronin, who went and killed a bunch of people while he was Ronin.
Heads get lopped off, though.
Well, but that's my point. We know Winter Soldier was an assassin that had to like make up for all of the killing that he did. Like, it is not like no one in the MCU has been a cold-blooded killer.
Right.
Multiple characters have. And I think that what we're really saying is that particularly in other people's movies, or if he shows up in other movies, he can still be the Punisher. He can be the exact same character, playing him in the exact same way, and can still be like, I'm going to take justice into my own hands and kill people. Maybe we don't hear every bone break and see every spurt of blood, but like, that's okay. Like, if they get the character right, and thus far in 25 movies, they've shown that they're pretty good at getting the character right. Yeah. I'm perfectly happy for him to join the Marvel Universe, and we tone down on the violence so it goes from R to PG-13. Like, if he showed up in the Marvel Universe and all of a sudden was like, I know that I'm Frank Castle, but I've decided that I like hugs. Then okay, then everyone was right and Disney ruined it, and we can all agree that it was horrible. But like, I don't think that that's going to happen. So, look, I loved the Punisher series, at least the first season, as much as you guys did. And I'm super happy that we got to see that Punisher. And I do think that were he to come into the MCU proper, there would be certain movies and certain places where him being a bit more violent would be appropriate, and certain movies where him still being the same character, but it's not quite as violent in its execution. Also, don't forget, between Moon Knight and Blade and everything else we're coming, Frank Castle can also go up against a lot of supernatural, alien, and other threats in the MCU where you can let him loose and he can lop off as many heads as you want. So there's a lot of ways that you can bring him in where I think it will work fine and be appropriate to the tone that the MCU has set up, and still be true to what he's been so far, but we'll see.
Okay. All right. I mean, I want to see him. Do you believe the reports? Do you think he's coming back? Do you I guess real quick. Do you believe
based on Charlie Cox and D'Onofrio coming back as Kingpin? Like, I think the question is not will any of these characters show up. The question is which ones won't. Like, it really boils down to who did Kevin Feige think was cast well, and who did Kevin Feige think was not great. And so I think in that case, I think that like Daredevil and Kingpin were definites. I think that Punisher is the next most definite. Then I think you get into a Jessica Jones, Luke Cage maybe, and then I think there's a giant jump where you're like, I think you guys are all going to be waiting for that phone call for a while.
Right. Good point. And they might recast Iron Fist with an Asian character and kind of redo that whole backstory, don't you think? I
think if they don't, it would be better to let that fist lie.
I don't disagree with you at all. But I mean, if they recast Jessica Jones, the Kristen Ritter fans are going to go insane. Are going to be people. But I mean, I think, love her as Jessica.
I think with her, most definitely, and to a degree, Luke Cage.
Oh yeah,
I think that they were both cast so well for those roles that if you want to use those characters and you've already kind of opened the door to say those things are at least somewhat canon, for both of them it would be silly to recast. I think they both did such a good job as those characters. Once you get past them, I think everyone else is like, you can go either way on that.
Yeah, and it's kind of smart too that they're keeping as much as we've said this, or I've said this a number of times, like as much as they're spin out in the galaxy, they are going to build this kind of ground level, even in New York, if for lack of no other city, even in New York, they're going to build a ground level approach to the MCU with Moon Knight and what have you. So that's exciting to see them doing that. Even with Hawkeye, if he goes West Coast or stays, either way, it'd be exciting to see a ground level Marvel that's happening on the streets with Daredevil and all of that I think will be fun. And even a new Spider-Man, if there's a new Spider-Man or Tom Holland, I don't know, but it'll be fun to have that along with these Marvel crossovers.
Look, one of the most epic moments in Marvel history, which many of us are hoping that we get to see at some point, and one of the things that most people think is like an iconic moment is all of the Marvel heroes gathering together to fight Galactus.
Yes.
And the only way that you can actually pull that off, to your point, is you have to spend a lot of time building up the cosmic shit so that we will accept a giant man in a purple helmet showing up to eat Earth. But you also have to build up the ground level so that we can be excited about all of these people that have absolutely no chance of fighting the giant purple helmeted man. Fight the giant purple helmeted man. So you need to do both. And so whether that is what we get or some other version of that with Celestials or anything else, having those ground level heroes up against something that is that big and cosmic is, I think, what everyone is hoping we get to.
Yeah. Well, speaking of cosmic, let's hit our last subject here in this first block of the show here, and that is these new Doctor Strange 2 Multiverse of Madness posters that dropped. I'm going to share them on the screen here through Twitter. Just to get through, these are the posters. These look pretty badass.
This is for the people that are just listening on the podcast since they can't see it. I'm just giving them some sound effects.
Yeah, it's good sound effects. You're giving them right there. Yeah, I'm taking our graphics down here so that people can see our reactions to it. But yeah, these look pretty awesome. We got the different colors here: the red, green, and the light blue or turquoise or whatever hue you want to call that. That also mirrors what you see here in the Strange posters. All three of these.
There's three of them.
So have we added a new variant here? And by the way, these are from Red Wolf. You can go take a look at them on the Red Wolf website. There's about 18 of these. There are different variations of this, and I did not have time to load all of them and go through them. But these are pretty incredible in terms of giving you the vibe of what Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness is going to be all about. So, gentlemen, what did you think of these posters here as I put our graphics back up here? What did you all think?
You know, Marvel has gotten dinged somewhat justifiably in the past for sort of the cut and paste poster Photoshop poster. This is not that. I mean, this is very much, you could argue this is artistry. This is like right out of a comic book. Whether or not this is what a version of this is what they do for that main poster, which I do think suffers from sort of the Photoshop problem, we'll see. But I mean, they also released a Wanda poster as well.
Yes.
That just looked awesome. And there was another one that's Strange and Wanda together, where they're literally, it looks like they're both kind of coming apart, like in ribbons.
Yeah, the face. Yes.
Yeah, which just looks so cool. And thinking to the poster that the teaser poster that they released for Moon Knight.
Yeah.
Like something so simplistic, but it's so effective. I love when the marketing department lets them kind of flex their creative muscles like this, because I think you get things that are very eye-catching and very resonant.
This is what you're talking about, which is really, really cool. The ribbons, and for those of you who are listening to us, you can watch this or Google it. Just type in multiverse.
Oh my god!
Oh my god! Michael, what do you think of these posters? As I put us back together again, what do you think of these posters, man?
I mean, I think Shannon's right. I think they're gorgeous, and I think that I do think that both. You saw this with Spider-Man: No Way Home as well. After the movie came out, after we got like the main Spider-Man poster, they started releasing a bunch of other posters that looked much cooler. So I think they are sort of pushing the limits and not doing just the typical Marvel thing. I also think, like I always can't help but look at these and like look for the hints. Like I don't know that we're necessarily getting the dark. Oh, I almost said it. The dark variant. Nope.
Dark Door Strange.
Nope. I literally did almost say it. Now I'm gonna go punch myself in the face. I don't know that we're specific, and maybe we will, but I mean, it made me wonder. I don't know that we're specifically getting that version of Doctor Strange for this movie, or if we do, it's just sort of an inference that he's that one, but that we don't need to know all of. You wouldn't have had to have watched What If to know who he was. But the idea that what we saw in that episode of What If opened us up to the concept of multiple Doctor Stranges, that's making way for us to see however many different Doctor Stranges here. I do think, it'll be really interesting to see what all of these Doctor Stranges do. I think, leading up to any of these movies, Spider-Man No Way Home particularly, we love to conjecture and we love to talk about what we think this is and what we think oh my gosh, was that really Doctor Strange, or his hair was different? So does that mean that's the evil Doctor Strange from the thing? Right. And usually it's never as complicated as we want to make it. And they actually manage to do something that is satisfying in its execution for all the nerds, but simple so that anybody going into the movie theater can understand it. So I have a feeling that as much as we think they're going to be biting off in the Multiverse of Madness, it's still going to have to be something that you can walk into that theater with your popcorn, sit down, and more or less understand. So I'm curious to see how all of these Doctor Stranges come into play.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I'm curious too. I'm looking forward to it. I think the designs look fantastic. I wish I could get all three posters and then line them up right behind me to cover up these blinds. I would absolutely get it because it looks stellar. It looks fantastic and gives you more. So the anticipation for this movie, here we go again, right? Spider-Man No Way Home. The anticipation was off the charts. And even with the crappy posters, which some people did not like, the anticipation was still off the charts. And then, by the way, someone put the little hobgoblin or what a Green Goblin thing at the back of some poster over the last couple of weeks, and I lost my shit. Just absolutely lost my shit. It just like them sliding that. I think it was on the Book of Boba Fett or something like that, sliding in that guy. So it was genius. But either way, we're getting the hype train is going to start building for this one as well, because it's the next step in the multiverse and fleshing out the multiverse. And you wonder if Sam Raimi is going to be able to step up to the plate with something like this. So very, very curious, but certainly the artwork is very exciting. It gets you very excited to see what we're going to get. All right, well, let's take a quick break here, and then we'll jump into our main topic, talking about Luke, Leia, Solo, Lando, all of these legacy characters possibly coming back now after what we saw in episode 6 of the Book of Boba Fett with Luke Skywalker. We'll be right back right after this.
Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do.
That's good. That's good. That's good. That's
a little mood, little set the mood. I liked it.
Got the double do's there right at the end. That worked so well. All right. Well, here we are. We're going into our main topic here on the show. And as I just said before the break, it is dealing with the idea of bringing back these legacy characters to maybe tell more stories. Mike and I touched on it with Shannon last week, the idea of the possibility. Michael seemed to be a little hesitant or a little like there's no need to tell these stories. But we've since had conversations after that episode 6, and things have maybe changed a little bit. Here, seeing the technology from this YouTuber that they hired to help do the deepfake technology. I'm not saying I'm not putting everything on his credit, but certainly he was a part of this thing. And
well, he certainly helped.
He certainly helped. That's for sure. And seeing what we got from the episode 6 here. And by the way, if you haven't seen episode 6, this is going to be all spoiler talk. So if you haven't seen episode 6, stop right here, go watch it, and then join us here. But the Mike and Shannon, what are your minds now going to after we saw the incredible work that was done with Luke that was much better than the good work that was already done at the end of The Mandalorian season 2? What did you first of all, what was your reaction, and then what do you think about where we might be going with if these characters could come back?
Well, I thought it was super cool. One, I thought it looked incredible, but as his scenes started, the scenes with him and Grogu, Luke's first few lines were off camera, and then they were at a distance, and then slowly they started to come in. So as amazing as the visual is, there is still sort of a weirdness with the mouth. Like, I don't necessarily see the uncanny valley in Luke's eyes, but I do think there's a weirdness with the mouth. And maybe this is where Luke's character is right now. But I just feel like, and again, I don't know how they did this. I don't know if Mark Hamill was on sets and they used the double, or if it was just the double and Mark Hamill came in and recorded the lines afterwards.
Yeah, he's credited as the voice on IMDb. So
within the performance, I don't know, for me, as much as I enjoyed it, there was, for me, an emotional disconnect between the voice and between what I was looking at. Okay. Now, and I felt the same thing even at the end of Rogue One with Leia. Like, it was so amazing to see her, and because she had just passed away, that was such a moving moment. But going back and watching it again, it's like it just doesn't look quite right. And depending on where the technology gets to in the next few years, at this point, I would say no. I don't necessarily need them or want them to come back, partly because I feel like the Star Wars galaxy is so big and it's expanding.
Here we go.
And you don't necessarily need to go to the well with those characters. I don't know if we'll see Luke again after this in this season of the Book of Boba Fett. Maybe not. But I don't feel like you need to use those characters again. I feel like there's new characters that you can introduce. That's not to say that in a few years, once the technology, if and when the technology does catch up, that's not to say that it's not possible in the future down the line. But right now, that is not something I need.
Okay. Mikey, what's on this?
I'm torn on it because, as you know, like we talked about this, and I'm not as firm as I was when we argued it last week, because then we had this whole argument last week. We all watched Chapter 6 of Book of Boba, and we all screamed and texted each other, and holy shit, this was amazing. So clearly, I am a nerd. If you put these characters in front of me on screen and give me stories, I will have an emotional response. It works. Like I'm on board. The nostalgia buttons are hit. I get excited. I start weeping. It's a whole thing. It's great. To Shannon's point, I'm not so worried about the technology. If going from the end of season 2 of Mandalorian into what we saw in Book of Boba is a jump that took however long it took, the fact that they're going to get there and get rid of all the small, because I agree with some of the things Shannon said. They clearly shot around the constraints of what they could do. Luke is standing pretty still a lot. He's not overacting. Not that Mark Hamill as Luke was ever, acting for the rafters, but there's definitely a stiltedness to Luke's performance that I think is because of where the technology is. I think they're probably going to solve for all of those things. I think we with the speed with which visual effects happen these days, if it's not a year from now, it's 2 years from now. If it's not 2 years, they're going to get to the point where they could seamlessly give us any performance. So then you get to the question of like, okay, well, how far is too far? Like, Mark Hamill kind of still being around, and whether he's actually lending his voice to this or just giving it the blessing and they're taking his vocal performances from previous things and mixing and matching or whatever it is they're doing to get that young Mark Hamill voice, he's around and he's kind of giving his okay.
Yes.
If Harrison Ford wants to get a paycheck and he says, yeah, I let him do whatever the fuck they want. Who cares? I'm smoking weed. Great. Like let him do his thing. But then you get into
allegedly. I don't want to get us in trouble. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
I think you're protected, John.
Okay.
I was watching the Nerd Pals or something. They said I smoke weed. I don't smoke weed.
But like the Carrie Fisher of it all, it does start to get a little weird now. And what I mean is like using Carrie Fisher's likeness. Like all of a sudden having some CG Carrie Fisher running around, you're like, this starts to feel a little weird. So then you get to, well, can you recast these characters and have somebody else play them? And like, you can. And I'm sure that at a certain point, people will be okay with that as well.
Yeah.
So I'm torn because given the nature of the way Star Wars storytelling exists,
right,
we have huge gaps of 20 years, 30 years where there's plenty of stuff to fill in. And part of the joy of Clone Wars, the animated series, is in the animated sense, they filled in those gaps. We got Anakin, Obi-Wan, Padme, Palpatine, Mace Windu. Like we got stories with all these characters that we never got in live action. And that's what made that era, at least for me, really come to life. Right. And so, yeah, seeing the beginnings of Luke's Jedi Temple being built, knowing where he was at the end of Jedi and knowing where he is in Force Awakens, like that is great. You know, to your point, John, about the novel Bloodlines, like seeing a post Return of the Jedi Leia dealing with the beginnings of the New Republic, there are great stories there. Seeing what happens with Han and Leia as Ben is born, the moment when Ben goes with Luke to the Jedi Temple, we know what these things all mean. So seeing those stories brought to life is always going to be powerful to us. Yeah. To Shannon's point, if we just focused on those stories, we would never get the next Rex or Ahsoka or Fennec Shand or Bad Batch. And so Star Wars has done such a good job creating new characters. So I think there is a balance. I think where appropriate, in small doses, getting these hints of nostalgia, getting these hints of characters, if you can do it in the right way, it's great. My fear is that executives see exactly how much we're all freaking out about Chapter 6 of Book of Boba, and just like Sony does with their Spider-Man movies, is going, all right, shit, that's the button. Let's just keep hitting that button over and over. Give them young Han, give them Lando, give them Leia, give them all the stuff. And it's like, at a certain point, that's going to be a problem. So I think that you can do it in small doses in service to new characters and new stories.
The Young Luke Skywalker Chronicles. Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to see that. No.
How much younger do you want to see him? He wasn't doing a lot on Tatooine. That's what we found out in the first Star Wars movie.
Apparently, we got to get a Die Hard prequel. I don't catch him going in the Nakatomi Plaza till then. So anyway, look, I take your points, obviously. And yes, both of you make excellent points about the fact that, look, there's more than just Luke Skywalker in them. But a lot of what we've seen is tied to either Anakin or Luke. It is within the timeline, which is something I brought up weeks ago on this show. Although we're creating new characters and we're exploring new stories, we're still basically in the same time frame in all these projects that have come out, except for maybe the books with High Republic and Thrawn and all that kind of stuff. That's maybe a different time, but still, all of it seems to be interconnected around this timeline. So yes, the idea of Luke coming in, I mean, I don't think they're going, green light that Luke series now. I can't imagine they'd be doing that because that's going to take a lot of effort. And
well, sir, you've never been in an executive boardroom.
That's fair. That's fair.
They say some stupid shit.
But this idea that I think like Leia is a possibility now because they already CGI'd her in Rogue One. That was kind of the first step. And then this Luke showing up at the Mandalorian season 2 was like a bigger step. Now Luke showing up here with a better look is the next step in the process. And so I think they're warming us up to this possibility step by step by step, and then surrounding it with fantastic stories like stuff out of the Book of Mandalorian, like Rogue One, so that you're kind of combine, you're remembering it in a project that you enjoyed. If they did a CGI Solo, a Star Wars story, which was admittedly a divisive film, I think people would have a different feeling about it. And so I think because they're doing it this way, the possibilities exist. Now, Michael, what you said is something I hadn't considered, which I think is a way to do it, which is in doses. You have a Han Solo scene, or you have a Leia scene, or a Lando scene where they're de-aged and they can still do the voices. As far as Carrie Fisher, I mean, that's a Billy Lord situation. Is she cool with it? Because I imagine she doesn't want to play Leia, because that's a lot of pressure to put on a young actress.
Well, and also she's played a character. Like it would,
right?
Like if they. Yeah, I mean, if they augmented her, that'd be one thing. But...
Yeah, plus this legacy. I mean, if you watch Postcards from the Edge, I mean, it isn't like Carrie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds had a great relationship. So the last thing you want to do is have yet another daughter playing, kind of carrying on the legacy, playing a mom and stuff like that. It just would be weird. So I've seen Mary Elizabeth Winstead. I think that's certainly a possibility to open the door and explore the possibility of recasting. I'm cool with it. I just like that we're getting to the spot finally. We're done with this idea of like, oh, you can't possibly tell Luke stories or Leia stories or Han stories. These characters are very rich. And yes, I'm an original trilogy guy, so I get it. People who came into Star Wars from another place. I mean, when Laura says she didn't really have a connection to Boba, it really kind of like the hair on my neck rises when my friend Maggie Lovett there, when we do the Hollywood Critics After Show for Boba Fett, when she says, I didn't really care about Luke and now I do. I'm like, what? And so it's a very foreign thing to me, but you have to create the space. So now kind of bringing these legacy characters back with these other newer characters, I think, and someone mentioned this in the Twitch show I did earlier on Friday with Wendy, that they could bring these legacy characters back and give us the reunion we didn't get in the sequel trilogy. I know people might bristle at that, but I would love to see that. I would love to see that myself.
I with Carrie Fisher gone, I don't think that
you don't carry the weight.
No, I really don't.
I also think I'm trying to think the right way to put it. The reason that Luke is effective in this episode of Boba Fett is that we are very invested in the story of Din Djarin and Grogu.
Yeah.
And it makes 100% logical sense that Grogu would go to the Jedi Temple at this point in the history of the Star Wars universe.
Right.
But Luke is used as... he is an obstacle to Grogu and Din Djarin's relationship.
Yes, he is.
This is not about Luke. We were not telling the story of Luke's struggles starting the Jedi Temple.
Right.
We are telling a story about Din Djarin and how he wants to be here, and Luke is a part of this device. And so I think that if we were, again, Carrie Fisher issues aside, because it does make me feel kind of awkward, but like if we are going to tell a story about the trouble that the New Republic is having out on the Outer Rim because the New Republic pilots can't keep the peace out there, and we go back to the capital, which is on I can't remember the name. I'm gonna lose my Star Wars cred, but we go back to the capital and we're in a meeting and no. That's not the capital of the New Republic, man. They're not gonna put the new capital where the old capital was. That place is bad juju, man. Coruscant is not the capital of the New Republic. It's the place that gets exploded at the beginning of Force Awakens.
Hosnian Prime, is that what you're talking about?
Hosnian Prime.
Yeah.
Oh God, Shannon, what's the matter with you? But no, my point is, if we were going to see Leia briefly in that respect, the places where these characters should pop up in service to the new characters, if we're going to all of a sudden have this entire, let's do a whole Luke, Han, Leia reunion, and they're really carrying this, and it's not any of the actors, that starts to feel like, why are we telling this story?
Yeah.
You're right that these characters do exist.
Yeah.
And it would be... And even though I thought this is what they were going to do in Mandalorian, it would be silly to try and work around these characters in the places where it just makes sense. Like Grogu is Jedi. Grogu has the Force. He needs to be trained. Who is naturally going to show up? It should be Luke. So it makes so much sense that it makes sense for it. If you start manufacturing reasons for them to show up, I think it starts to get weird.
Well, with Leia, I think it's a different situation, isn't it? Because Leia, I mean, she's not some farmer on some random planet on the Outer Rim. She's leading the fucking New Republic. So I just feel like you've got to see that makes more sense to weave her into this. Solo is the tough fit. right? Solo is the random tough fit that you could put in this, because what is he doing? Is he still, is he trying to make it work wherever they're living, being a stay-at-home dad, or is he still out there trying to
I want to see the Han Solo Mr. Mom Disney Plus series.
Chewie in an apron. I mean, to your point, John, I mean, I think you can.
We'll honk for porks. Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
I think you can tell that story about the New Republic forming and have Leia be a presence. Yeah. But the story itself would be about different characters. Like, I think you can have her. You can have her spirit be there.
Well,
you can have a hologram of her at a conference, but I don't think you put her in the forefront.
So you're still holding on. You're still holding on to this, are you? Like, for you, it would really bother you.
I mean, look, I'm like you guys. I'm a Star Wars fan. If they make that, and I think it's a bad idea, I'm still going to go see it.
Right.
Yeah. But like after Rise of Skywalker, I'll look over when it's not good and be like, "Told you so."
Is this coming from an actor point of view? Like, you don't like the fact that they can CGI you, and like, this is something people have been talking about for decades, right? Ever since they did that Fred Astaire commercial and other people commercials, like, wait, what the hell? And it kind of died down, and now it's starting to come back in ways. We had that hologram of Tupac performing a concert that people were freaking out about. So, and there were rumors that James Dean, they were going to redo CGI James Dean into a movie, and what have you. So is this from an actor place that you're like, hey man, don't replace us with CGI stuff?
No, because as an actor who's had a special effect over their face for one of their performances, I'm very acquainted with the fact that we are the most expendable part of a production. No, I mean it's probably just nostalgia, and like the idea of recasting or doing it as a special effect, as a visual effect, it's just not something that it's just not my jam.
Fair enough,
but. Like, I thought the last episode was fantastic. Even if I didn't love every part of it, I still thought it was really great. And if they're able to pull off, like, if the technology is able to get to that point, and we do see on the either big screen or small screen, we see how Ben Solo gets that, turn to the dark side, and we get to watch that. Great, awesome. But just for me, there's just roadblocks in between that and it being satisfying.
Yeah, Mike, you might be right. I mean, what if this had been 42 minutes of Luke with Grogu? Would people have picked it apart? Yeah.
I think that, first of all, I think 42 minutes of Luke and Grogu, the seams of what they're capable of doing, to Shannon's point, would have shown a little bit more.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But like I said, I think that's going to become a non-issue in a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right in that I think Leia, when you look at Star Wars and like them telling stories in this pocket between Jedi and Force Awakens, Leia is one of the bigger challenges because she's not around anymore. Since Carrie Fisher passed away, but she looms larger over the Star Wars universe than most characters. While Luke gave everything up and left to Octo, and Han went back to smuggling, Leia kept doing her thing and trying to save the galaxy. Like, she's the character that arguably has the most story to tell, and she's also the one that it gets a little weird as far as telling those stories. So I agree with Shannon. I think that if they're going to continue telling stories in this era, I don't think you can avoid Leia. I think you have to, you would have to work hard to avoid her. But I think how they choose to go about filling in her parts of the story as we are following the stories of these other characters, like, let's just say that in season 3 of The Mandalorian, Din Djarin works some shit out and ultimately figures out a way to give Bo-Katan the Darksaber, and Mandalore now has to deal with the New Republic. Well, I want to see Bo-Katan have a conversation with Leia. Like, the Star Wars nerd in me goes, that just makes good sense. How they handle doing that, that's going to be the real question.
When she shows up next week in Mandalorian, or in Book of Boba Fett.
Hey man, John's batting average is high enough that you do not dismiss his ideas.
You never know. I'm crazy enough. I know what 50-year-old men would do with these characters, so I just anyway. All right. Well, let's wrap it up there. We got to get on out of here. We're over an hour on this show. Thank you all so much for joining us and watching us here on the Geek Buddies. We appreciate it madly. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's at geek_buddies, on Instagram at _geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung, on Instagram at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MK2. And if you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says. And for everyone who congratulated me on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, thank you very much. That was incredibly nice.
It was. Mikey.
Well, we really enjoy doing the Geek Buddies, and we hope that they never replace us with CG versions of ourselves. And the way that you can help us make sure that that never, ever happens, except maybe Mr. McClure over here, here's a couple things that you can do for us. Definitely smash that like button below, subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page, and check out all the amazing content that he's got there. Leave your comments below. What did you think of all the Netflix trailers? Are you excited for Madam Web? Are you excited for the Marvel movies? And what do you think about this whole Star Wars debate? More Luke, Leia, Han, Lando stories, or should we go in a new direction? Is there a balance to both? Let us know in the comments below. If you are listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anywhere where podcasts are available, definitely leave us some stars and some comments. It helps us go up in the rankings. And as always, the best thing that you can do is repost this video, retweet it, put it on your socials, tell everybody to check out the Geek Buddies, and that you really enjoy hanging out with us, because we really enjoy hanging out with you.
Yeah, and speaking of hanging out, please remember to hang out with the people over there at Carbon Health. They power and sponsor the show. They're a leading national healthcare provider with a mission to bring high-quality healthcare to everyone, urgent care, primary care, virtual care. They've got same-day appointments in clinics. That's right, same day or virtually. They want to remove the traditional boundaries to healthcare. They have 90 clinics in 14 states, and they offer virtual care in 24 states. They want to make high-quality healthcare accessible to everyone, and they also offer testing for you now, COVID testing for those of you who are either vaccinated or unvaccinated, need to get tested. They've got testing there at their clinics, and if you're going overseas, they've got testing available there, so you can qualify for that to go overseas and not have any concerns about that as well. So make sure you go and check them out, www.carbonhealth.com, and see if there's a clinic or virtual care available near you. All right, thank you all so much for watching this episode of the Geek Buddies. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you next time. Remember, we dropped our spoiler review of episode 6 of the Book of Boba Fett. If you want to hear more of what we think about it, and with our guest Laura Kelly, that is out there for you to watch as well. And that's it from us here at the
Geek
Buddies.